Councilor Chris Rivera, Mayor Weber, Sheriff Adan Mendoza, Chief Padilla, our Fire Chief Babcock, Deputy Chief Joy, and Captain Tapia. Councilor Rivera, myself, and the mayor have received several calls, emails, and direct messages surrounding the tragic deaths of Ivan Armando Perez, Aiko Perez, and JB White. There's been several calls about other police-related concerns, specifically in District 3. Tonight is primarily for the purpose of hearing from the police and their efforts, but I will continue to emphasize throughout the night and the days to come that there's a much larger, more comprehensive response that is needed, one that is going to require us all to participate in. There has to be a broader conversation and conversations in the community surrounding health and safety. A coalition, Youth at the Center Coalition, has been established that includes Earth Care, Gerard's House, Deacon Anthony, and others. The mayor has created a community health and safety task force that Councilor Rivera and Councilor Villarreal is heading up, and groups like the Boys and Girls Club, Capitol High, and the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board are starting to engage teens with a forum tomorrow at 4 p.m. But we are hearing from the police tonight. We do want to reserve time this evening to hear from the public about these other critical pieces and practical next steps we can take. Councilor Rivera, did you want to add anything before we get started?
No, thank you, Councilor Beta. You did a great job. Just wanted to thank all the panelists that are here tonight. I think it's a great group of people, and putting this together, what it's really shown us is that, you know, it truly does take a village to raise a child. And this isn't just a city issue. This is an issue that is going to span across the schools, across many other community groups that I think we need to meet with and can probably gather with at some point to figure out how to deal with the violence, the teen violence in our community. So thank you for your introduction, and look forward to the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Councilor. Mayor Weber.
Thank you, Councilor. I also want to thank both of you for really championing this meeting and meetings before it and meetings that will happen in the future. And to the 35 folks who are here as attendees, I want to thank you all for taking time this evening to be part of this conversation. Councilor Abeyta is right. We've all received messages, but we don't need to get messages through email or phone calls. We know that there is a great deal of sadness and a great deal of concern in our community. It involves young people killing or being killed by other young people. It involves gang-related activity. It involves equity issues and fairness issues and issues of health and safety that really are highlighted by these tragic events. And so we wanted, and in particular, Councilors Abeyta and Rivera, working with Christine, who really helped coordinate this evening. We really want to give a report back to the community on some efforts that our police and fire and community services team are making, but also to hear your voices and respect your input. This is an ongoing concern for all of us. And as Councilor Abeyta mentioned, there'll be more discussions, more conversations, including a youth sponsored event tomorrow. And we really are quite committed to engaging with everybody in the community and letting everybody be part of the solution, because it really is a matter that belongs to all of us. And we're really here to be catalysts and helpers, resources, and also listeners. So with that, thank you, Councilor Abeyta. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Okay, Chief Padilla.
Yes, thank you all and good evening. It's a great opportunity to speak to you all. I know we don't do this on a regular basis, but I think in the new world that we're living, this is something that we truly definitely need to do, and there's no excuses anymore. Information is power, and we need to share that information. And what we're going to be covering tonight is called Operation Stop the Violence, focusing on this topic to get these young adults that might be going down this path of violence and the criminal activity. And before they end up into some type of court system or jail system, is we truly want to help them out. We formed a team of detectives a couple of weeks ago to go out and meet with individuals who we believe are suspected of going out there and causing some of this violence or being associated with these people. And we want to guide them and put them on the right track in life. And although we may receive some type of resistance or uncertainty with some of these individuals, we hope throughout the next few months that it'll be an ongoing conversation and relationship with them. And we will be able to help them with anything they may need. If it's life skills, coaching, job interview skills, getting some type of education like a GED. We're going to partner with the local groups. And if anyone else has any other ideas or any other groups are out there that want to help us out, just because we started this initiative a couple of weeks ago doesn't mean we have all the players playing right now. We know this is a community effort. We need everyone and anyone to step up and help us out. So come one, come all. And like I said, our detectives and with the leadership of Deputy Chief Joy and Captain Tapia, they're focusing with these detectives. And then, like I said, reaching out to Sheriff Don Mendoza. If any of this does go out into the county and there's an opportunity for us to collaborate, we will definitely work with the sheriff and try to get these individuals on the right track. But just to reiterate the point that this is not an event or an operation that's going to be over and done with in the next few days. This is going to be an ongoing event and this outreach for the next few months. And this is something that's just not going to be done by next spring. Hopefully by next year, we can say that we're curbing and disrupting this behavior. And we can say that it's a success story and we've helped one individual or we've helped 5 individuals and they're receiving their GED, or we helped this certain amount of people to get some type of job either with the city, the county, the state, or at any other local grocery store or restaurant here in Santa Fe altogether. But I thank you all. And I know we received some other questions on a different topic. And like I said, I think at the end of the meeting, we will, if time permitting, that we'll be able to address some of those other community concerns. But now I'd like to either turn it over to Deputy Chief Joy or Captain Tapia. I know Captain Tapia has a PowerPoint presentation that he could present, share the screen, walk through that, and then I think we'd open up to questions regarding the operation itself.
Councilor Abeyta, excuse me, would this be a good time to have Sheriff Mendoza say a few words as well?
Yes, thank you, Counselor. I wanted to get to Sheriff Mendoza. And again, thank you for joining us, Sheriff. This is a much larger issue than just the city of Santa Fe. It involves Santa Fe County as well. So Sheriff Mendoza.
Counselor, Mayor, and all the other panelists, I appreciate given the opportunity to take part in the discussion. As we know, the violence has not been solely in the city limits. It has spread out into the county, and we need to continue to work together, share information, come up with a plan to make sure that our youth are safe. And I appreciate being part of the discussion. I would love to, and I'm anxious to hear some ideas on how we as law enforcement, how we as policymakers can come together to come up with some ideas to keep our youth safe, to curb the violence that's happening within the city of Santa Fe and Santa Fe County, and to be honest with you, in all adjoining communities. I think, as we've stated before, those that are intent on committing harm or violence do not see borders, do not see city limit boundaries or county lines. And so hopefully we can collaborate as a community to come up with some ways and a plan to keep our youth safe. So I appreciate the involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Mendoza. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started and hear from Deputy Chief Joy.
Sorry, I'm going to pass off to Captain Tapia first to do the presentation whenever he's ready for that. And then he and I will go through some of the questions, the community questions that were asked along the way, building up to this meeting.
Mayor, city councilors and members on the panel, members in the community, if we can get this PowerPoint up, I'll get started shortly. Hopefully everybody can see this okay. So recently we did put together this Operation Stop the Violence that Chief Padilla had explained, but this presentation will give a little bit of bullet points of what we're working on, what we plan on doing, what we plan on accomplishing moving forward. So if we can go to this next slide, please. So in recent months, we all know that the city of Santa Fe have seen a number of community tragedies involving youth-on-youth violence. Here in the city of Santa Fe, we have faced 2 homicides and 1 aggravated battery with a deadly weapon where a gun was involved. And all of these individuals involved had been the ages between 15 and 18 years old. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office also is investigating 1 homicide, as Councilor Abeta explained in the beginning, where a victim was identified as being those ages as well. The community has asked what the police department and the city is doing to address these concerns. This presentation and meeting is to provide information about how we as a community are responding to these tragedies and our efforts to prevent more violence. So on August 12th, 2020, the Santa Fe Police Department did come together and we formed a team comprised of detectives from the Violent Crime Unit, Property Crimes Unit, and the Criminal Intelligence Unit. This team of detectives was formed specifically to focus on the problems that we have been seeing in our Santa Fe area with youth-on-youth violence. To date, detectives have met with the Santa Fe County Juvenile Probation Office, as well as the First Judicial District Attorney's Office as part of our focus in this operation. In addition, we've worked with our community service department out of the city of Santa Fe and formed a partnership with the Santa Fe Youth Works, which is also offering us services and assistance. This collaboration will offer service to identified members in our community who are involved in high-risk behavior. The services to be offered will range from diversionary programs for the juveniles to alternative schooling and therapy services. Our first efforts after we created this impact team where detectives were able to identify a number of young individuals that were suspected members of a group that's involved in gang activity. Shortly after creating this team, we did reach out to families and suspected members. And during these contacts, detectives did speak with parents, grandparents, and others involved. And most of the contacts went well, and we did receive a lot of support from guardians. Some of the youths that we have contacted to this point have indicated that they do have interest in possible assistance and services that we can offer through all these identified resources. Detectives at this point are continuing their communication with these families in attempts to connect them with the appropriate services and programs. Following our initial efforts, we did do the ongoing operation, as the chief did say. This is going to be a long-term operation. Detectives have received information that there are 2 rival groups that appear to be battling for territory on the south side of Santa Fe. Throughout the month of August, detectives are continuing to focus on gathering intelligence of these groups here in the south side of Santa Fe. So far, the detectives have identified approximately 3 dozen suspected members, and we will continue to reach out and continue our efforts to contact all these members and their families in our continued support. Our vision with this plan is to assist any willing young member of our community to find alternatives to their criminal lifestyle and stay out of the criminal justice system. Through community collaboration, we do hope to offer our youth that's in need, to social service and support. We want to interrupt this violence and promote health, safety, and well-being. Our primary goal is to end the violent actions in our city before anyone else is needlessly harmed or killed. This is going to be our effort to try and support our community and the youth. So this next slide here will have some contact information. Again, I'm Captain Anthony Tapia. This does have my email address and my phone number. I am the captain of criminal investigations. And so any member of the public that may have advice, recommendations, maybe just has some family members that may need some support, reach out to me, as well as there's contact information for our patrol captain, Matthew Champlin. And at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Deputy Chief Paul Joy, if he has anything to add.
There we go. Sorry about that. Computer issues, me issues, more computer. No, I just want to reiterate kind of what's already been discussed and what's been pointed out so far is this project, this operation is very much still in its infancy. And we are doing the best we can on our part to gather information, gather resources, and to reach out to those people in the community who are better equipped and have more expertise in the areas of offering assistance than we do. The goal is for us to not have to get the criminal justice system involved. We would love to not have to make arrests and deal with the criminal aspect of some of the consequences of the choices and actions that we're seeing take place. And so what we would like to do, our goal and hope, is to intervene and reach out to these youths before they make decisions that they can't come back from, and the consequences that they can't come back from. And so, yeah, we've seen enough death in our community between us and the county. You know, we are one big community, and we, you know, it needs to stop. And like I said, I know there's been some concern about why is this being a police-led initiative. This, from our perspective, this isn't a police-led initiative. It's to the extent that, you know, we have recognized the problem. We are able to more easily identify and locate some of these folks and families, and we can be the facilitator, hopefully, to getting them into alternative programs and resources that they and their families can utilize.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Joy. As part of the or lead up to this evening, we had asked if the public could provide us with questions that they had in advance, written questions, and we have a list of them. So if we can start with those, and then after that, I'd like to open it up to the public for other questions that have joined us this evening that are specifically to either the police department or Sheriff Mendoza. And then again, we could get into the broader questions later on and the next steps and actions that we need to take as a community. So if we can start with the questions you have received, Chief Joy, that would be great.
Yes, sir, Counselor. Sure. So we received a number of questions. Some of them were duplicate questions, and some of them aren't necessarily police-centered questions. So Captain Tapia and I narrowed our questions down to about 10. He and I will kind of go back and forth through the list and answer some of the questions to the best of our abilities at this point. And like you said, Counselor, there are plenty more that will be addressed in further meetings or by other individuals. But starting with the first question, it says, what measures are the police department taking to address the increase in crime and nefarious behavior, gunshots, drag racing, and fireworks in this area? Just a brief kind of response to that. Operation Stop the Violence, and some of you may be familiar with Operation Slow and Quiet, now in its second phase. These are two proactive measures that we're taking as a department. We do these programs, we do these operations periodically, some for weeks at a time, some for months at a time. This one in particular is Operation Stop the Violence. There is no end date for when we're going to close this out. We understand this one in particular, again, is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. On top of, and these are intended to be proactive and proactive measures and interventions. Additionally, Captain Tapia or Captain Champlin, the patrol captain, he has begun a program, the proactive patrol response documents, which are kind of a formalized document that kind of specifies problems and issues in certain areas and directs patrol resources to those areas that they will then document and follow up on. So we'll have kind of a more concrete response as to what has been done to the issues. And for folks who are inquiring who might wonder how they would get their areas or get their neighborhood into one of those requests, they can either reach out to Captain Champlin in his email directly, or you can go through constituent services with Director Christine Mahilsik. I'll pass it on to number 2 for Captain Tapia.
Thanks, sir. The next question is there some type of task force that is focusing on gang violence? And if so, what strategies are they planning to implement? I know this is a great question. This was covered in the PowerPoint that yes, we did create this impact team, and to highlight what the intent is to partner with the community service providers to make diversion efforts for our youth before they enter the criminal justice system. So yes, we do have a team together, and it won't stop here. We're still going to continue looking for other partnerships within the community, working with the Sheriff's Department, and keeping moving forward on all efforts. So I'll pass it for the next question.
So I'll jump in on question number 3. Has any consideration been given to establishing a storefront police operation along Jaguar Drive? I live only 2 blocks off of Jaguar, and it seems that is the source of much of the problems in this area. So we haven't excluded or eliminated any options when it comes to trying to provide services to the community. As it stands right now, the city, so you have the districts for city council, but as far as the police department is concerned, the city's broken. We break the city down into 10 areas. Jaguar Drive, Tierra Contenta are all located in what we consider for us is area 4. And we, each shift, day shift, swing shift, graveyard, will have areas, area officers. And in the past, what we've done is those areas would rotate, officers would rotate through the areas throughout the city. Captain Champlin made the observation, and I supported him in that decision, that it would be better to have permanent area officers who are in those locations year round, so that they familiarize and can kind of take more ownership of the areas in which they're assigned. The idea of having just one locations located specifically on Jaguar, again, we're not against the idea as a concept, but generally speaking, the idea of having an area officer allows for them to be more proactive throughout the entirety of their area and not just on one street. And I'll pass it back to Captain Tapia for number 4.
So question number 4 is very similar to question 3 as our response. The question is, what are the current measures taken by SFPD to patrol and have a presence on the south side, particularly Tierra Contenta?
I'll continue on to that one, sorry. So yeah, the same thing. It's basically an extension of my answer for area number 3, where we have the officers permanently assigned to specific areas to, again, take more ownership and have more familiarity with specific areas instead of rotating them around through the city. Sorry.
So I'll take on 5. In the light of the shootings at the Bluffs and with COVID misbehaviors like loud mufflers, drag racing late at night, daytime drug transactions on suburban streets, etc., what additional measures are being taken to mitigate antisocial incidents? So these incidents that were talked about here are vastly different and are addressed in very different ways. Loud mufflers and drag racing late at night. As we discussed, we do have our Operation Slow and Quiet that is focusing on the street racing as well as the loud mufflers. As well as I want to give out contact information for drug transactions. If we are seeing this occur, or you got concerns of a residence or a location or a vehicle that you believe is involved in drug activity, you can contact our drug tip hotline, which is 505-428-3737. Again, our drug tip hotline is 505-428-3737. As well, if you see criminal activity taking place, at that time, you can contact our non-emergency line, or in an emergency situation, contact 911 and let our dispatchers know what situation you guys are dealing with. And they'll dispatch an officer out to respond. And I'll pass it back to you, DC.
Sure. So for number 6 here, are the above listed misbehaviors from question 5 being committed by people who live in the area? And that one is a yes and no. Yeah, we have certainly a number of them are from the local Santa Fe area. However, we do have information that some of the criminal activity is being perpetrated by folks coming up from Rio Rancho, from Albuquerque, some coming down from up north. So I wouldn't be able to give you a specific, 70-30 percentage or whatnot, but the answer is yes and no. But certainly a large number of them are being committed by folks and youths, particularly again with this operation, who live here in the Santa Fe area.
Okay, next one. In addition to, if you see something, say something by calling 911 or police non-emergency, what additional actions should residents take to assist the Santa Fe Police Department? I think creating a neighborhood watch program can be extremely beneficial, as well as installing surveillance or a security system on your home can be a deterrent to crime. Another thing that can be done is locking your vehicle doors, your home doors, hiding valuables left inside a vehicle. Many times we see that vehicles that are burglarized, many times are an unlocked vehicle, where opportunists are just going around and checking for unlocked vehicles to see what they can get out of it. As for the neighborhood watch program, if a community is interested in starting this, they can reach out to the Santa Fe Police Department, to our public community relations, and we can send them in the right direction to get that taken care of and provide those support.
So jumping into number 9 here, number 8, can you provide statistics by month for the last 12 months, including traffic incidents on the south side and Tierra Contenta, so that we can see patterns? Now, the original purpose of this meeting was to be informative with regard to our response to some of the violent tragedies that we've seen in our community. So I didn't have prepared specific statistics for the area, but I can certainly have that done to send off to the counselors and to constituent services, so those could be readily available probably in the next week or so to anyone who would like to see them. And jumping into number 9, what collaboration is taking place with the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office? If this is a true attempt to make this community safer, it would seem appropriate for all law enforcement agencies to participate in the effort. And I agree. Again, Sheriff Mendoza has joined us this evening, and we're happy to have him. And we've, since the beginning of these, particularly with the criminal investigations, our detectives and their detectives and their deputies and our officers have all been working very well together in a collaborative effort. With this particular operation, again, the focus was less so on the law enforcement aspect of it, and more so on how can we reach out and access services. And so the first area that we reached out to was our community services director, who then helped get the ball rolling and point us into local services that we could make contact with and facilitate. So absolutely, if again, the sheriff's office is on board with this. If Espanola reaches out and say they want to jump in on this as well, I mean, we're not boxing anyone out from any aspect or knowledge base. So everyone's invited to collaborate on this. And then I'll throw number 10 back to Captain Tapia.
All right, number 10, what collaborative efforts are being made with the Santa Fe Public Schools to rebuild a relationship and allow officers into the schools to do outreach? I'm constantly in contact with Santa Fe Public School representatives. We have a great working relationship. Santa Fe Public Schools did respond back to me when I knew this question was asked, and they said they're very open and willing to work with Santa Fe Police Department to create more avenues for students and to develop a positive relationship with police officers. What I do know is that the Santa Fe Public Schools do offer an education re-engagement program, also using YouthWorks as a hub. Santa Fe Public Schools also has the Children and Youth Commission that also offers support and services to the youth in our community. So yes, we are making collaborative efforts and hope to continue building that and being more involved with each other.
Thank you to Deputy Chief Joy and Captain Tapia for going over those questions. I know we received many questions, and I think Mayor Weber, you received a series of questions that were more specific to kind of your actions and actions of governing body. And if you would like to address those at this time, I think it would be really beneficial. And then I know after that, we'll go ahead and move on to community members that would like to speak or have comments. So.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I think it'd be only fair to ask Sheriff Mendoza before I speak to respond, because at least one of those questions was specifically about collaboration and cooperation between the Santa Fe Police and Santa Fe County Sheriff. Sheriff Mendoza, you might want to add and augment to the comments about everybody having a chance to participate in ways to improve and keep our community safe.
Thank you, Mayor Weber, and I did appreciate all the questions that the public submitted, and I'm sure there's plenty more out there. I know in speaking to a lot of parents, I've received phone calls and messages, and there's a lot of parents concerned about the violence that is happening within the city and the county, and they're looking for some answers, and they're looking for some leadership on how to solve some of those issues. And I think this isn't just a law enforcement issue, as stated before, but I know the public wants to know that we're out there doing our part, and we are. Obviously, at the Sheriff's Office, our priority right now is working on the case of the homicide that happened within the county, unfortunately, with Mr. J.B. White, and we are working diligently on that. But the community and the community members have the Sheriff's Office commitment and our dedication to continue to work with Santa Fe Police Department and any other law enforcement agency that wants to be part of the solution, to share information, to aggressively use social media and other identifying techniques to identify people that are involved in gang or violent activity, and not only to identify them to take enforcement action if a crime has occurred, but obviously to provide them services so that the behavior doesn't continue. I want to make a point that obviously we want the community to be empowered. We want parents to be empowered, and in the most simplistic form, we want our parents to be able to feel comfortable parenting their children, following social media. If we as law enforcement could get on social media and identify some of these individuals, we need to empower our parents and the community to be able to do that also. And to be able to refer or call somebody for help, services, or law enforcement, so we can prevent things like this happening. And we need to continue working with the trust and relationship that we have with the community and empower them to be able to reach out to us, because I think That's going to be very important in moving forward with some of these solutions in the county and in the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate your comments, and Counselor Beta, Counselor Rivera, if you want to at any point jump in here, I would welcome it. And if you want to augment anything I say or take off from any of the comments that our police team or the sheriff have said already, please feel free to do that. I think it's really your meeting in terms of coordinating it, and I'm happy to answer some of the questions that were specifically directed to me in my role as mayor. I can do that if you all would like that, and then come back to our counselors for their thoughts as well. The first question that I got directed to me was, what consistent effort is Mayor Alan Weber and the City Council making to ensure that law enforcement is adequately supported in order to accomplish such a task as making this a safer community? And then more specifically, if we're asking for more community policing, more officers in the schools interacting with the youth, more officers available to spend time with youth at community centers and parks, then how would the city ensure that SFPD has what they need in order to achieve this? Good question that goes to the heart of our priorities in city government. I can tell you that when I became mayor, and every day since, my number one priority has been the health and safety of the people of Santa Fe. That's been reflected in the budget that we've produced year over year. It's been reflected in the fact that I've gone to every single academy graduation ceremony where we were welcoming new people into the ranks of the Santa Fe Police Department, every single promotion ceremony, every single swearing in, because the men and women who are in the Santa Fe Police Department are taking on not just a job, but a sacred trust and a mission. Long after I'm gone as mayor, they will still be protecting Santa Fe. And I am committed to and devoted to our police officers, their families, to keeping them safe, to giving them the training, the tools that they need, and frankly, the numbers of officers they need to keep everybody in Santa Fe healthy and safe. When I became mayor, shortly after I took office, the city of Albuquerque passed a special tax measure designed to increase the police pay in Albuquerque because they were facing a crime crisis. As a result of that tax increase, Santa Fe lost about a dozen police officers who were available to move to Albuquerque or other jurisdictions. Truth was, we hadn't raised our police pay in significant ways in a number of years. And so last year, with the council's support, Councilor Rivera and Councilor Abeyta in particular, but others as well, we increased our police pay substantially. I think an average of something like 17.5%, with an effort made to increase it at the lowest entry level where we needed to bring in new recruits and add people to our police department. We continue that effort. We brought in an outside national organization called the Police Foundation to do a study for us to analyze what it would take to recruit, retain, develop, and promote the Santa Fe Police Department so it was fully staffed, fully trained, with the best officers we could possibly ever hope for, and to give them the tools and training they need. That report yielded a series of steps that Chief Padilla and his team have been implementing on an ongoing basis, bringing the tools and the training and the recruitment and retention policies that our department needs. We've recognized other needs. For example, an audit was done of our evidence room, pointing out that we had not kept it up to standards. Our police department asked for and got the resources to make our evidence room begin the process of reaching the national standards it needs in order to be fully accredited. We're going to continue with this effort to address policing in the 21st century. Perhaps the most interesting and important thing we're doing is the work that Councilor Rivera, Councilwoman Villarreal will lead with a task force on community health and safety, and the reorganization proposal that I've made to create a new department of community health and safety, recognizing that health and safety go hand in hand. They need to be two parts of the same effort. And we need to recognize the social determinants of health that involve fighting poverty, providing housing, healthcare, food, mental and behavioral health support, and at the same time, giving our police the support they need to do their jobs. Last year, our police department responded to almost 100,000 calls for service. 100,000 calls for service. Some of those, many of those, were calls to help people who are experiencing homelessness, people who are experiencing mental or behavioral health issues. And I think we all believe at the national level, the debate that's going on across the country and here is that we need to ask our police to do the jobs that they're best equipped to do and best trained to do. And we need to let social workers, psychologists, and other professionals do the work that they're best trained to do. And so Council Rivera, Councilwoman Villarreal will be exploring policies and programs to make that happen. And the reorganization that I've proposed to create a new department that combines health and safety will institutionalize that so that we continue to make our police department and our public health people partners in keeping everybody in Santa Fe safe and healthy. There's no doubt that community policing, getting closer to the community, knocking on doors when COVID-19 is over and speaking with people, getting out of the police cars and interacting with individuals is exactly what needs to happen. It's all about trust and relationship building. And I think we're very fortunate in Santa Fe to have a police leadership team that believes that that is the way to go and wants to continue that process going forward. I yield the mic to either Councilor Rivera or Councilor Abeyta if you'd like to weigh in on this, because this is the essential task of us as elected officials.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any comments at this time. Councilor Rivera.
Yeah, just with related to the Health and Safety Task Force, as being one of the co-chairs on this, the best example I can think of things we're looking at, and it's not so much taken away from police, but really looking to see if we can do things better. So when I look at something like mental health issues, you know, those are things that probably shouldn't involve jail, shouldn't involve being taken to jail. It should involve a group of people working together to try to address the mental health issues. And it's just, I think we've been sending the wrong group of people for some time. So looking at things like that and really bringing community members together to really help us figure out other ways to do the work better than we have been doing. So that's important. I know the mayor, I don't know if he's going to mention the mayor's youth advisory board, but does have a board together of young people that meet and talk about specific issues. So that's important. Mayor, I don't know if you were just speaking about the task force, or did you want me to go on with a couple other things I had?
I think you should share your experience. I'm sure people know that you are not only a counselor, but former fire chief as well, and you're very familiar with these overlaps and integrated services like MIHO that really are landmark efforts here in Santa Fe to recognize this blend of health and safety. So please go right ahead.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. I did spend most of my career as a paramedic firefighter and ended up as a fire chief. And really the fire department has come a long ways. And the mayor mentioned the MIHO program, which I co-sponsored some time back which is the Mobile Integrated Health Office. It's just a way of again, looking at things that the fire department was doing differently. And maybe Chief Babcock, who I know is on, can elaborate on that a little bit in just a second. But I also wanted to mention that Councilor Beta and I, along with the mayor and the governing body, are still working effortlessly to try to bring more funding for the teen center, which we hope to start construction here soon, which is across from the Southside Library. Very important thing, and it'll give teens an option to gangs, hopefully, and let them have something else to do besides really getting into trouble. I think tonight's meeting has really opened my eyes to the fact that we probably need to meet more, that we need to collaborate with many more people on how we move forward. And really want to congratulate our police department, sheriff's office, fire department in the proactive work that they're doing to address these matters. So they're really forward thinking, and I appreciate all the work they're doing. So maybe Chief Babcock now can talk briefly about the MIHO program and how it's doing, and what their efforts are on a daily basis.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the fire department does have a program, as you stated, called Mobile Integrated Health Office. That's where our MIHO stands for. What that program is doing right now, we are reaching out to opiate users, anybody that has used an opiate drug. We try to connect them to services so we could get them off that drug. As you stated earlier, behavioral health addiction problems, that shouldn't be something that people are spending time in jail. You need to connect these people and case manage these individuals to programs that they could beat this addiction problem or behavioral health issue or mental illness. We have to make sure that we get the people the right response. Chief Padilla, myself, and the Community Services Director are working on a pilot project to try to get the right service and the right outreach to our community. Youth is very important to me also. I've been with the fire department for 30 years. Prior to being in the fire department, I was an employee of a youth center in the east side of town for 7 years. So I'm very passionate about our youth and making sure that we have things available for them to do to stay out of trouble. One of the questions was asked earlier about the collaboration between the public schools and law enforcement. Chief Padilla and myself, as well as our HR director, had engaged with early college opportunities at the Santa Fe Public Schools to try to get these people involved and interested in public safety, whether it be fire service or law enforcement. And we'll continue to do that and try to provide mentorship for our youth because, again, Santa Fe is very tight-knit. The fire department, police department, sheriff's office, state police office, we all have good working relationships. And this is a really great opportunity for all our agencies to be able to put forth effort and trying to get people on the right track instead of just being law enforcement doing their job and saying we're taking people to jail. Police department has a very hard role to carry out on those 100,000 calls. A lot of those calls are inappropriate calls for law enforcement to be responding to. The algorithms of a first responder, firefighter, paramedic, one of the first points of the algorithm is the scene safe. My firefighters, my paramedics, they really rely on law enforcement to make sure that the scene is safe. So my employees could provide the services and medical needs and attention that those individuals call 911 for. So I'm very happy to be supportive of this. I think Chief Padilla and Sheriff Mendoza definitely have it on the right track, and as well as mayor and councilors, the fire department will be happy to support and stand behind all these initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Counselor, anything else you want to go through?
I think that was it for now. There may be more as the meeting continues. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you both. I want to mention one other thing before I turn to the next question, and that is the plan that the police are executing is been tried and proven successful in other cities, other communities around the United States. For those of you who are interested in the policies and practices that reimagine policing, Chief Padilla was able to go back to New York City to a program run by a fellow named David Kennedy, who really pioneered this idea that if you can identify who the gang members are and talk to them as individuals and with their families, and point out to them that they have a choice to make, either a choice of going the hard way, potentially to jail, or tragically perhaps to an early death, or step into services and education. This program was written about in a book called Don't Shoot, which I highly recommend. It applies to almost every social service crisis that we're experiencing in the United States, not only guns, drugs, and gangs, but also young people engaged in other kinds of dangerous and self-destructive behavior. So Chief Padilla is really a student of this approach, and we all recognize this is not a problem you just arrest your way out of. Nobody's talking here about a criminal justice first solution. We're really talking about a holistic approach that starts with the idea that young people deserve an opportunity to choose a better path for their lives, and that the police have the information, they have the intelligence about who the young people are who are at risk, but the community has the resources to give them a different path. So we're also investing in education and the best thinking we can find. Second question is last and surely not least by any means, what is the mayor doing about the outrageous drug and alcohol epidemic in our community? Drugs and alcohol, as you are very aware, is the largest contributing factor when we're looking at violent crime, robbery, theft, domestic violence, child abuse. If these underlying issues are not going to be addressed simultaneously with youth violence, then we are wasting our time. Totally agree. The entire country has been going through a national crisis of epidemic proportions. We now know from lawsuits that have gone on all over the United States that large corporations in the drug industry have successfully created a generation of drug addicts. By promoting painkillers, they've destroyed people's lives. Last year, I appointed a group of residents to be a task force on drug and alcohol policy changes. And they've now come back with their very, very thoughtful and progressive report, which starts out by saying, like I just said about youth violence, you don't arrest your way out of a drug and alcohol addiction crisis. You provide services to people who are in need. You treat alcohol and drug addiction as a disease, which it is. You treat it as something where people need help, not jail time. And we've heard from people who are themselves addicted. They were part of the voice that came in front of this task force with a very significant number of findings that we are hoping to implement going forward. And again, this is part of what this reorganization that we're talking about will bring forward. It'll create a new department where health and safety are combined. We have Chief Babcock did not mention a proposal that he put into the budget that was just adopted by the city council unanimously to create a new response team for some of these drug and alcohol related cases where rather than a fire engine or a fire truck or even a police car will go on a call, it's a van staffed by a trained police officer, an emergency medical technician, and a social worker to go in a van rather than in a police car to help people who are experiencing behavioral health and mental health issues, often around drug and alcohol addiction. just as we've seen young people lose their lives to violence, we've seen young people lose their lives to drugs, including a former member of the city council who we all grieve with, and for his family still, they feel that kind of pain. So we're not a stranger to it. We know it is a deep-seated issue, and the city needs to approach it with a different set of ideas than what we've perhaps used in the past. The last question for me directly, Councilor Beta, Councilor Rivera, not to keep you out of the conversation. If you'd like to, please do add to what I just said. Not required, but welcome. All good? Councilor Rivera?
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Last question is from Earth Care. The recent budget adopted by the city of Santa Fe protected the police budget at the expense of social investments in families and youth. How would you have redistributed the police budget? Well, what we tried to do with this police budget was to respond to two very, very specific needs. One was to continue to invest in the people who are our police department. 70 or 80% of our police budget is devoted to salaries and benefits of the men and women who are our police officers. And as I said, they last year responded to about 100,000 calls with the police department that is still, by most people's assessment, under-resourced. Even at that, we cut the police budget by about 10%, while adding about 6% to the budget of community services. And we've now asked for $25 million from the state in CARES Act funding, which is passed through from the federal government to the state and will come to local jurisdictions, including Santa Fe. We expect to hear on Monday what our request will receive. We asked for 25 million. A lion's share of that goes to community services to continue to invest in the kind of programs that will directly affect the lives of people in our community, address issues of homelessness, mental and behavioral health, drug abuse, food, shelter, people who are at risk because they lost their jobs because of COVID-19. We have a Connect program that we're working with the county, again, collaboration between the city and the county, to have more than 50 ambassadors who work directly with individuals and families who are in need to provide direct support to get them through this current issue of COVID-19 and the economic and health challenges, and then to build a network of support going forward. I think it's on everybody's first front burner that what we're seeing with COVID-19 is all of the pain in our community is laid bare. All of the inequity is laid bare. All of the families that are struggling are now visible to everybody in our community, and there's no excuse for not bringing our resources to help those who are most in need, those who have long been ignored, those who deserve help, those who are asking for help. I'm going to put in the chat box, I hope it works, there's a report that the United States Conference of Mayors issued about a week ago on police reform. If you can link to it and download it and read it, it is a very good piece of work dedicated to a national audience, but very much applicable to Santa Fe as well, with suggestions on how to make our police department and all of our city departments, but particularly law enforcement, trusted, engaged, committed to community support, providing information and data, as well as responding to community needs in an ongoing and compassionate way, to go back to the time when we thought of police officers as peacekeepers and people who really were there to keep the peace, as opposed to what young people may see, which is a scary person who is their enemy rather than there to help them. So this reform movement is part of the national conversation, and we are deeply part of it. We've looked at the 8 can't wait list that President Obama put out and checked our use of force policies against it. We measured our training programs against best practices. We are serious about recognizing implicit bias and training against it. We are very clear that our officers understand what use of force policies do not permit, such as chokeholds when making an arrest. And our officers are required, if another officer violates our use of force policies, they are required to report that officer. We have no patience or tolerance for people who don't recognize that everyone in law enforcement is mutually dependent on an oath of service to protect and serve the people of our community. So that's the work we're doing right now. It is in Councilor Rivera and Councilor Villarreal's task force. It's in our reorganization. It's in the collaboration across boundaries between police and fire, emergency management, recreation, as well as community services. That is really a significant commitment from this administration. I'd add one other thing, which is that about 6 months ago, we added a committee that never existed for our city council members to be part of. Historically, we had 3 standing committees that our council members were assigned to. Finance, Councilor Abeyta is the head of the Finance Committee, a Public Works Committee, and a Public Utilities Committee. That was our standing committee. Today we have Councilor Rivera, who is in charge of a committee that combines public works and public utilities, but there's a third committee called Quality of Life that never existed before, that takes up people issues, that takes up neighborhood livability issues, that does speak to issues like Councilor Rivera mentioning the teen center and programs and policies that do outreach for quality of life, neighborhood livability, and issues that before that committee was formed had no place to go to get the work of the city government engaged. Today, that Quality of Life Committee, and Councilor Rivera is on that committee as well, is doing amazing work to look into issues of responding to COVID-19, responding to health issues across the community, employment opportunities, food need, and the whole gamut of quality of life concerns that we should all be looking at. We now have a place for that work to be done. So we're stepping up as a city government to make that commitment real. Those were the 3 questions that came to me from the community, and I appreciate the chance to respond.
Thank you, Mayor. Christine, I know you have a couple of more written questions that maybe you could address, or Deputy Chief Joy can address, and then I would like to open it up for comments from the public. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Counselor. So you're correct. And one of the questions that we received was, I recall data citing a very high number of calls to police for what really could be handled by a community services officer. Examples of calls include barking dog, trash dumped on the side of the road, sprinklers running during prohibited times. And I just wanted to clump those together and say that that's correct, but those are not calls that our officers respond to. Those are calls that are handled through our constituent services department, and then we source them out to the correct departments. And I do want to provide the information for that to everybody tonight. I do want to mention that the City of Santa Fe, we developed a new CRM tool, which is for constituents to be able to report issues and items. So if anyone goes to the city website, you can hit report and request, and any of the things that I just mentioned can be reported. So if there's a barking dog complaint, you can report that there, and then we will coordinate with animal services to dispatch and investigate that. The same with trash dumped along the side of the road. Please, I encourage everyone to contact our office. And again, you can either do that online through our new online tool, or you can call our main line, which is 955-6949. And just again, to clarify that those are calls that our police officers do not handle. Our animal services is under the police department, but again, those are animal service officers and not our police officers. And then just again, reiterate that if anyone has anything, it's constituent services is always a great first stop, as we will help assign those to the correct department. Now, one of the sub-questions of that was also specific to ATVs, driving on the streets, motorcycles that have loud mufflers. And I would like to direct that to Deputy Chief Paul Joy, especially as Operation Slow and Quiet continued into phase 2. And if you could give us any, just a quick overview of that, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure. So, and I'm gonna group that into one of the other follow-up questions. So I'm not ignoring it. I'm just gonna answer it a little bit later on. So I'm gonna go down to when they talk about another pressing concern is driving habits on Airport Road, Paseo del Sol West, Jaguar Drive. Is there data for the number of traffic accidents reported on Airport Road and those other streets? Who would be able to produce that data? That is something that we can have our crime analyst work on. Again, it's not, I didn't pull numbers specifically to prepare for tonight's meeting. It was just kind of informational with regard to what we're doing for Stop the Violence. But yeah, we can certainly have our analysts work on that information to provide to the counselors and constituent services to disseminate at a later time. And then moving, what would be the most effective way to control noise pollution on the streets being created by motorcycles and altered mufflers on cars and trucks? This goes directly into the other sub question from previously, but that is part of the target. These are all part of the focus for Operation Slow and Quiet, again, entering its second phase. If you are aware of, or you live near one of these afflicted areas where it's happening frequently, you can direct that to Captain Champlin, whose email was provided before, but we can certainly get that to you again. He is compiling all the complaints and constituent concerns specific so that we can know where we need to send our officers. And so if you're aware of that happening, please give us a call. If it's happening in your area at the immediate time, of course, call the non-emergency number, 428-3710, and let them know. Again, our response to that in real time is going to depend on what calls for service our officers are currently responding to. But regardless, at the very least, it allows us to have that information that the call came in at this time in this area. And so we would have that on file for reference for the operation, for enforcement for the proactive operation. Number 17, I'll kick back to Christine.
Okay, I actually just wanted to follow up a little bit on the Operation Slow and Quiet, because I happen to have statistics from the first phase 1 of the operation up, and I did just want to mention that citywide there were 477 traffic citations issued during that 25-day operation. 13 of those were specific to racing and reckless driving. Again, these are citywide statistics. 97 for speeding, and then 18 for loud mufflers. As you mentioned, the police department is now in phase 2 of the operation, but just so everyone knows, the information for the first operation is available on the city website, and the operation phase 2 will be available once the operation concludes and the data is available. So just wanted to kind of note that. And then I think Mayor, I don't know if you had any more questions on your side, but I do know we have a handful of questions that were not specific kind of to the police efforts tonight, and those will be addressed either at a different time or through a different meeting. But Councilor Beta and Councilor Rivera, I know you had interest in now moving into public comment and allowing individuals and participants on this meeting to offer suggestions or feedback for us. So please let me know if you have anything else that you would like to say at this time, or if you would like me to move into that phase.
Thank you, Christine. We are scheduled to go till 8 o'clock. We have over 40 participants, and I'd like to hear from as many of them as possible. So if we can go directly to that, Councilor Rivera, what are your thoughts?
I agree with that completely.
Okay, Christine.
No, Councilor, given the number of attendees, I think normally what we do for governing body is have we allot like a minute or two, and then I go ahead and call on participants that have their hand raised. Is it okay to go ahead and follow that same protocol for this?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So given that, just give me one moment and I will, so just so our participants know, if you're interested in commenting, please raise your hand and then I will say your name and I'll go ahead and start the timer, and then I'll let you know when the time is up and we'll move on to the next individual. So with that being said, also one other quick request for our participants is please make sure that your name is on your display so that I can call you by your name. I do notice that there are a few that have organization names. If you could also insert the name, your personal name, then I can call on it. So the first individual that I will be calling on is Marianne. So Marianne, I went ahead and unmuted on my end.
Thank you. Yes, hello, my name is Marianne Maestas, and a longtime resident of District 3, and my family was also impacted by recent events, and we had no idea that there was a community meeting about this topic today until yesterday. So just want to state that there were a number of questions I know were sent to this group that were addressed, and it's pretty misleading to cherry pick questions that support over policing in our neighborhoods and our communities. And we know, and I've experienced this, the south side of town has been over policed for decades. So why is it that we only really focus in our community, which is already under-resourced? And why is it that there's always this attention and political will to target young people, especially young men of color in our community, right? Like, what exactly does this operation mean? Like, what specifically are you going to do with our youth? And, you know, we really need to know, like, the majority of youth in Santa Fe live in communities that are under-resourced and lack public investment in basic quality of life stuff. So, like, what specifically are your plans to address this other than over policing? Because over policing is really only repressing these issues. Thank you.
Marianne, your moment is up. Thank you so much for your public comment.
I'll speak to that. So our focus isn't to over police. Our focus of this operation is to offer support and services to the youth in our community. We want to engage with them and be involved with them. Again, the primary goal is to prevent them from entering the criminal justice system. It's to get them on the path and services that they would need, support that they need, and be part of the community with them.
Thank you, Captain Tapia. So the next individual that has their hand raised is Artemisio. Hold on one moment and I will unmute you. There you go.
Hello, my name is Artemisio Romero. I'm the Santa Fe Youth Poet Laureate. And in these last few hours, I've heard a lot of people talk about low-income youth of color and what we need. Well, as a low-income youth of color, I'd like to tell you something. I'd like to speak specifically to Alan Weber. You mentioned that our generation, our young people look at what you call peace bringers or peacemakers and find them to be scary. And you said it in a condescending tone as you misrepresented an entire population and minority. I would like to say that that's true. I do find police scary. I found it scary when they took Timothy Ramon Lopez and shoved him against the ground in Arizona on asphalt and fried him like an egg. Alan, I found that scary. I find it scary that there is so little transparency in terms of complaint records with SFPD. I found it scary when SFPD took 3 to 4 hours to respond to a looting and hate crime in downtown Santa Fe several months ago. I think it's very reasonable that we find police officers scary, that we find people with qualified immunity, heavily armed, showing up in our communities, not as members of our communities, scary. I think that's very, very reasonable. And I'm deeply offended that you would treat it as anything but. And I would like to say that if you wish to continue treating over-policing as a solution, that is deeply shameful. But if you are going to do that, we would demand a resident oversight committee and real data to help us understand what you're going to do to our communities.
Thank you so much.
Christine, I think that was directed to me, so I'm happy to have a little bit of a response. And first of all, and I also appreciate what Marianne said, I think I was not being dismissive or in any way talking down. I was trying to talk facts of life. The facts of life are that a lot of our young people in America are deeply alienated from and scared of and untrusting of police departments. And in many cases, it's for good reason. There's a massive unrest in America around policing right now in Wisconsin, in Portland, Oregon, all over the United States. Young people are raising their voices and saying, we don't feel safe from the presence of police. We feel less safe from the presence of police. And that is a serious issue for our whole country and our community. It goes to the question of what is the purpose and calling of public safety and policing.
Defund SFPD.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. I take it seriously what you said. I think it's a really important comment and community comment on issues of trust and issues of engagement in a positive way. And I'm no way condescending to you, sir, or to any of the young people or any people in our community who feel deeply upset by historic racism or inequities. It is the single most important issue in our country right now. So I take it enormously seriously, and I am glad you speak up and articulate it so well.
Mayor Weber, councilors, the next individual doesn't have a name. It's actually New Energy Economy. So if they would just state their name, that would be wonderful before they spoke. Whoever's using the login New Energy Economy, if you could, you've now been unmuted. So in the interest of time, just like we would in council, I'll move on to the next individual, which is Alba. Alba, you are the next speaker.
Christine, as often happens in council meetings, sometimes folks don't know exactly what the unmute, where to find the unmute.
I finally
Yeah,
clicked.
Alba, I think she was just on delay, but I saw
I
her.
clicked it, Alan. Thank you. My question is a quick one, and that is at the beginning, I did not hear what the age range is for the intervention, because I'm hopeful that it goes throughout the school age, even beginning in upper elementary, because many of the youth who get involved in gang activity are older siblings, and the younger siblings look to that older sibling and can be influenced by what they see happening. So I would hope, as a former teacher retired, that interventions are throughout the youth, but certainly at the junior high level, late elementary, 6 through 8, 6 through 9. Those are very vulnerable years for influence, I think, of gang membership. Even that young, it does occur. And I just was wondering what the age range for this force of intervention is. Thank you.
I can speak to that. There's really no cap on this. Some of the individuals that we've been reaching out to have already reached the age of 18, which technically would make them an adult as far as the justice system is concerned. But with regard to our operation, there are certainly still within reach and interest for us. So we don't have a bottom cap or really a top cap as far as age goes. We're not closing anybody out.
Thank you, Alba, and thank you, Deputy Chief Joy. The next individual is Melissa Mendoza. Melissa, if you can go ahead and unmute on your end, and then you'll have the floor.
Perfect. I got it. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, to everybody that put this together. I was born and raised here. I grew up on the South Side. I went to Sweeney. I went to Ortiz. I graduated from Capitol. This is my life. And I can tell you that firsthand, after the events that have taken place over the past, 5 to 6 weeks, that our youth, they are scared. They are scared, and it's not easy for an adolescent to articulate that fear and express what they need. And so I think that it's very important for us to be able to be that voice for them. So thank you very much for doing this, and please continue it. What I want to echo actually is what Alba said, in that we really do need to focus on relationship building. It is very, very important for youth, children, all the way from elementary school through high school, to be able to put a face to a name so that they aren't fearful youth, so that they do have connections and contacts with not just law enforcement officers, but other agencies. And I think one of the things that we really need to look at is streamlining information, because there are wonderful agencies in our community working very, very hard. And there needs to be a central hub, so to speak, so that you can log on and access this information, so that it doesn't take a referral to CYFD in order for that information to be given to a family. Because I do think that it does have to be a collaborative effort. Law enforcement, the community policing, all of the agencies that are in our community. And so I think that this is a start to something that can be very, very powerful and impact this community in a fantastic way, as long as we do not isolate anyone, right? And so right now, yes, this is a District 3 meeting, and I think that it's a good foundation, and I hope that that expands so that everyone in the county, everyone in each district is really able to have a voice and be involved. And so I just wanted to make a comment. I thank you for answering all of the questions I submitted. I am very eager and willing to collaborate with the county, with the city, with the mayor's office, with anyone. I do have an extensive social work background, and so I will participate regularly in these meetings and offer as much support as I can. And I thank you, and I appreciate this very much.
Thank you, Melissa, for your comments.
Christine, can I just offer one suggestion? There is a central information hub. It's called the Connect program, spelled just the way it sounds, but with all capital letters. It's a city-county collaborative effort. It is think of it as a front door for a variety of social services and community needs. Our community services director, Kira Ochoa, is a source of information about that. You could get a hold of her probably just going to the city's website, or if it doesn't work for you, contact either the mayor's office or Christine, and we will make sure you find the Connect office or the Connect program. It really is a hub for service. It's exactly what you asked for, and there are more than 60 navigators to help people get the help that they need, because I think we all recognize that the social service world is hard to find your way through. It's complicated. People can fall through the cracks. This gives everybody help to get the help they need. So thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you, Mayor. And then just so everyone knows, I do have a timer. So if you hear something in the background, it's the timer. But I am trying to be really let everybody follow through and finish their thoughts. So just that. The next individual who's up is Susan, and I apologize, there's not a last name, but Susan, I've unmuted you on my end and given the permission to be able to speak. So.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a great idea of what we're discussing, especially with our youth who are at risk. My suggestion is that we include JPO services who are on the front lines dealing with these children who get the referrals once an incident has occurred, whether it's at school or if law enforcement is called. Also, if we could get counselors from the schools who directly interact with these children and have a relationship with them, so we can better understand what it is that these children are dealing with now in this time and generation and this century. It's a lot different from when we were young, where we were faced with a lot different problems, but we also had a good family base, which is not so as the generations have gone on. And that just has to do with the increased suicide rate, also the drug use going on and substance abuse with family members, including these children are at risk with their parents, and some of them are even homeless and in shelters. So I appreciate having this first meeting. You know, we don't know, this is like the beginning of it, but if we could also get Andrea from JPO and also Mary Louise, who also has a very close relationship with all the kids in all the schools, and just get their information. That way you, Mayor, and law enforcement have a better idea of how to verbal judo with these children and not have to use force right away. You know, we don't know what's going on with these kids. These kids have already been established with certain behavioral issues that have been going on. Maybe they're also on substance abuse, you know, abuse, physical, mental. We don't know what's going on with these kids. And they're just so vulnerable, it seems now, versus when I was young and an adolescent. So that's really all I wanted to give my input on this meeting, and just have a little more of who is on the front lines. Yes, law enforcement is on the front line, but when they get that call, that's the only time law enforcement gets on the front lines, is when they get that call. And we want to get there before. we need to get those calls. Try to get in there before and start getting these kids some help if that's necessary, or whatever it is that these kids need. They have no direction, they have no role model, they have nothing to do. And so they're turning to all this other crap that they see, whether it's on social media. They have more access to internet, and we have nothing for these kids to do. And right now during quarantine, they're not doing anything but drinking, partying, and just doing stuff that they just shouldn't be out there doing, but there's no opportunity for them to do anything else. So if we could come up with some kind of program, I know the Boys and Girls Club has some, but it's not enough. It's not enough.
Thank you so much, Susan, for your comments. And then I will go ahead and move on to the next speaker, but thank you so much.
I can just jump in real quick, just to let you know, Susan, we actually have been out in contact with Mary Louise. JPO is on board. They're part of the first team, one of the initial groups that we reached out to assist with services. And Mary Louise, actually, we met with her along with YouthWorks just on a Tuesday afternoon for quite a while. And we're very happy for her expertise and help with this project.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Joy, for that. So Adrienne Cole is our next speaker. Adrienne, you now have the floor.
Hi, so I just want to start off by thanking you all for this meeting. I've been directly impacted by what just happened. So I'm thanking you all. I have a zillion thoughts, but I'll get to the point. So while I don't think that this area has been over-policed, because these kids are very comfortable in our city parks. They are posting on social media, even after all of these instances, with many guns. They are not afraid. They are not feeling like they need to be hiding from law enforcement. I am hoping that these parks are being patrolled, because there are pictures of them on park benches with guns before the latest murders. After, they're taunting law enforcement. And I'm hopeful that law enforcement, both county and city, are actually stepping up patrols all around the city, the south side, the north side, the east side, the west side, everywhere. Clearly, parks and open spaces are their place to be. So I think with the resources that are available, there needs to be more patrolling, because they're not afraid. They don't care. They're not afraid of you, and they have not stopped. And I am sorry that they clearly have no value for life. Secondly, or whatever number I'm on, I understand, Mayor, that we can't arrest our way out of the current situation that our city is in. And while I agree, I'm a teacher, I adore kids. I spent the last 4 years trying to protect my cousin from all of the hate that he received. I know many of the kids who sent the hate his way, and I still care for them. I still care about them. But at what point are these juveniles going to be held accountable? I absolutely believe in rehabbing these teens and these people. However, enough is enough. This is it. How many more lives are they going to take before we're holding them accountable? Mayor, I know you reached out to me. I apologize that I haven't gotten back to you. It's been a rough few times. I did get to speak with Officer or Deputy Chief Ben Valdez a couple weeks ago, which was great. I did speak with Counselor Abeta, and I'm thankful for all of the initiatives. I'm just disappointed that it's taken until August 12th for the police departments of this city and county to identify 36 individuals who have been posting publicly on social media, various platforms, their activity. but I'm thankful that we're here now. It's better late than never. And I look forward to working with all of you in whatever capacity I can to make sure that no other family has to endure what we are enduring right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. I'm terribly sorry about your tragedy, and you don't have to call me back. You raise a really important point about the plan that our police department has put together. And I think perhaps inadvertently, one important step was skipped, and that is in meeting with the young people who are currently involved with gang and group criminality. I think the police department is very clear when they sit down with the young people and their families, and that is they face a choice. And the choice is, if you continue in your current way of life, you're going to go to jail, or you'll lose your life. But some of them will end up in jail, and they'll end up in jail for a long time. The consequences of making bad choices are very serious, and people will be held accountable. And that needs to be made crystal clear, because it's both a carrot and a stick. The carrot is we've got resources. The community has resources. People on this call are offering resources. The people that Councillor Abeyta mentioned, who are already starting and working as a group themselves, are resources for our young people to take advantage of. And those who choose that path will be helped, and they will find there are people who will give them support. Those who choose to continue down the path of criminal behavior, they will be held accountable. And your point is exactly right. There is a fork in the road. And when you make the wrong choice, it leads to very serious criminal justice consequences. If you make the right choice, it leads to very positive social service offerings. And that's the fork in the road.
Thank you, Mayor. The next individual to speak is Poppy Wilder.
Hi. So the first thing I just want to say is I'm super alarmed and upset by how many people in this community see police as the #1 response to everything, especially in the South Side with youth. How can you ask youth to listen and respect a city that has failed their community for generations? You need to look at where they're raised and they've seen the police, they've seen this city underfund, under support their community for their their parents' generation, their grandparents' generation. This isn't like a new problem, and it shouldn't be the youth who are blamed. The second thing I want to really bring up is why does it take me sitting at a city council meeting or like a community council meeting for however long to hear about like the Connect resource or any of those resources? What is the plan to educate the community so that, you know, everyone's #1 response isn't calling the police and wasting resources and taxpayer dollars, so people actually know who to call instead of just calling the police over and over and over again? What are we going to do to educate the community about the resources that are available, even though they are underfunded, underutilized? So what is the plan with this task force in order to educate the community about these resources instead of just, you know, saying, oh, you can reach the cops if you think there's this X, Y, and Z. How are we supposed to educate, you know, the young people too? Like, I'm young. How am I supposed to, I don't know about any of these resources to help my friends who are, you know, have addiction or have problems. You know, what are you going to do to educate the youth so that they can help their friends before these things happen? Thank you.
Thank you, Poppy. The next individual is Cynthia Hale.
Hi, thank you. Okay, so I guess I want to start with stating that I did not take away from this meeting that we're trying to over-police. In fact, I took away the opposite, where you guys are asking the community to step up and get involved because the youth aren't on the same level where I guess I don't even know if other cities are on the same level, but where they're communicating or taking guidance from police officers. So my question is mainly, who would be our point of contact for those of us who want to participate with the community in this movement to get out on the streets with these youth, and what other outlets are there for them, such as, like, I know a lot of them like are into rapping. Is there, are we reaching out to people who maybe could help them produce, or graffiti art out with the city parks? Like, there used to be these things where they would take groups of troubled children, and not even just troubled children, but anybody, where you can come out and like change our streets personally. So that's my question, is who is our main point of contact for those of us who want to participate and be part of the change?
You can reach out directly to me, Captain Anthony Tapia. Hopefully you wrote down my information earlier, but if not, you can just call our dispatch line or our chief's office and they can get you in contact with me. I'll make sure that you link up with the teams that we got working.
Well, and Christine, I want to add though too that we also want to start working with youth at the Center Coalition and also the Community Health and Safety Task Force. So I think there needs to be a follow-up after this meeting, Christine, to how people can get involved with different groups. Thank you.
All right. The next individual does not have a name. They're on a Galaxy S9, so I apologize. There's no name to call, but I will unmute you. So if you, there you go.
Thank you, Christine. My name is Francesca Martinez, and I have a couple of questions regarding your community police efforts. What do you plan on doing with these teens to let them know that you are there for them, that you are there as their resource, that they can look to you as somebody to trust, because you have to gain their trust. If you don't have their trust, you're not going to get anywhere with them. Also, what kind of resources are we going to pour into our community for these teens? What kind of drug and alcohol programs can we create for them? Also, what kind of domestic violence programs can we create for teen domestic violence, dating domestic violence? You know, so many violence strikes our teens in their homes. And this is probably one of the main sources of where they get this violent streak to come about. And I also want us to remember, our children are not disposable at all. Never should we ever think that any child is disposable. And lastly, I would like us to not forget that one life is not worth another. I understand I knew 3 boys that have died within 11 days. Need to come together for these children. We have to, we are failing our kids. And I think that we are failing as a society. Our children.
Francesca, I don't know if anyone else is, but I'm having a hard time hearing. It's cutting out.
Thank you for listening to all of us.
I unfortunately think that there was
I'm
service.
sorry, are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, we are. And I think we heard some of the conversation, and then there was a loss of service for some of it.
So I just want to make sure that we don't lose our teens in this. You know, one life is not worth another. I've lost 3 children in the matter of 11 days that I have known and loved, that I have seen grow up. And this completely breaks all of our hearts. I want us to remember that we, as a society, we need to do better for our children. What kind of programs can we pour into our communities? Drug and alcohol programs, resources for these kids who don't see any other way, domestic violence programs to help them and let them know that we are here for them and that there's a better way of life than what they are living. If we can't reach them through trust and communication, we're failing our children. And our children are not disposable. No one, not one of them is a disposable asset of ours. And we need to quit treating them that way. I just want to thank everybody for having this meeting, for listening to all of our concerns that we were able to voice to you. And I look forward to working with people in my community to make a difference for our kids.
Thank you so much, Francesca, for your comments and for the service. Following up on what you had originally said. The next individual to speak is Pamela Moreno.
All right. Hi. You can hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for taking this time. I appreciate everybody that is showing up and has made comments. I have also been affected by the recent incidents. It is sad. It is tragedy. But I also feel that along with the programs that are coming about, that the parents, whether they're single parents, guardians, grandmothers, whoever is in charge of these children, have to get a grip on them. Because these 16-year-old boys who are not quite adults in the eyes of society are still children and need to be held accountable in that aspect, but also their parents need to be held responsible. Because even with domestic violence that goes on, that needs to be addressed. Poverty, low income, those all have to be addressed. But the parents need to be held responsible. It is not the school's responsibility to put these children straight. It is not the police department's responsibility. It is not the government's responsibility. It is the responsibility of the people that brought these children into the world. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that not one department or one council member or one governor or one mayor, nobody can do it, and nobody should be held at that level to be held responsible for our own children. It is our own children. We brought them here. We are responsible. Thank you for the time. I'm sorry I went off on that.
No, thank you, Pamela, for your comments. Oh, there she is. The next person is K&E Hoff. Looks like. Give me 1 second. I'm having to reconnect them as a panelist, so there should be a slight delay.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for attending this meeting. I appreciate all this input. Elected officials, thank you for being here too. Our members of law enforcement, thank you very much for your service. I had a couple questions. Mentioned earlier, there was talk of a neighborhood watch and some expressed concern over policing. What exactly could a neighborhood watch entail in the experience of the law enforcement members, I guess more specifically? What roles could a community watch perform that could assist the community, be there for the youth? And my next question was, are there any steps being taken to ensure that any offenders who are committing these violent crimes are not just immediately left back out onto the streets?
Thank you, Mr. Huff, for the questions. I don't know at this time if we want to move on or if one of our Captain Tapia or Deputy Chief Joy just want to mention the importance of the neighborhood watch.
Just jump in real quick. You can reach out to our PCR sergeant and training sergeant Farron Rodriguez. Again, if you want to call the non-emergency dispatch number or the chief's office, we can direct you to him and he can give you more information specific to neighborhood watch, how it's helpful, how you can go about getting one started. For no other, if for no other reason, it helps you to get to know your neighborhood better, the folks that are in your neighborhood, who keep an eye on each other's residents while they're gone. You can see who should be at certain houses, who should not be in certain houses. Help you kind of take more ownership of your neighborhood and your street. But Sergeant Rodriguez can give you more details on that specifically, and can assist with setting up meetings or anything along those lines. With regard to the enforcement action, the enforcement side of this, just to echo again what the mayor said, again, we hope, and our goal is that these youths and their families will choose option A, which is we get them in contact with services and people who have more expertise in facilitating and helping with education, with job placement, counseling services. These are all avenues that we are trying to get these people in touch with. But for option B, and to be blunt about it, that we have met with the district attorney's office. They are aware of what we've been doing and the folks that we've identified and what we're working with, and they have agreed with them and juvenile probation to help on the enforcement side of it, to make sure that if the services are refused, they choose to stay in this criminal element and they are committing crime, there will be consequences to their actions.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Joy. And then also just to provide the number, if anyone is interested in creating a neighborhood watch group, the number is 955-5300. So if anyone is, again, interested in contacting Sergeant Rodriguez, the number is 955-5300, and that is for the neighborhood watch group, or interest in neighborhood watch, excuse me. So I also, Deborah Trujillo had her hand up. Deborah, I'm not sure if you were wanting to speak. Her hand went up, but then it went down. So Mayor, at this time, Councillor Rivera and Councillor Abeyta, we are close to 8 p.m., which we did say we would wrap up the meeting at 8 p.m. And everyone who had their hand up to speak did speak. I apologize. I need to try the new energy economy one more time. They have been unmuted, so if anybody is from New Energy Economy wanted to speak, they can do so by unmuting their microphone. All right. Okay.
I'm so sorry that I've had so much trouble. This is Bianca, supposed to be on that, not actually with New Energy Economy, though I'm using our Zoom. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate everyone's time in the discussion tonight. Just wanted to echo concerns that have been raised around process, and also just making sure that we are lifting up our young folks and providing them with the support they need, and that policing and having more police in the schools, etc., is really like not the direction that I understand that our young people in our community are asking for, and instead looking at the systemic issues that are resulting in violence. And so I appreciate the conversation so far tonight about alternatives to policing and ways to disinvest from punitive and state authority and sort of oversight and dominance, and instead lifting up the community and supporting community-based solutions that are driven by our communities and our impacted families. So that's really all I wanted to say, just echoing what folks have already said. And then also just echoing again the issues around process. It was really frustrating for a lot of folks, the way we didn't hear about this meeting until the very end, and that there was a disregard for conversations that are already taking place at the community level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bianca. All right, it looks that was the last hand. It looks like that was up. Counselors, I don't know if at this time, again, we're now at 7:59 p.m. So with that, I do just want to let everybody know that the meeting will be posted on the city YouTube page. So you can either go to the city YouTube channel and, or excuse me, you can go to YouTube and Google the City of Santa Fe and our channel will come up. It's also linked directly from our city website, which is santafenm.gov. There is information for the Connect program on that page, and this evening I'll work on pushing that back up to the top of the homepage. But at this time it is 8 p.m. I know there's interest in having a follow-up meeting and additional collaborations, so we will work on that and work on getting information out for that. And Councilor Abeyta, Councilor Rivera, or Mayor Weber, if you have anything else that you would like to add tonight before I end the meeting.
Thank you, Christine. I'll start by thanking the panelists for joining us. I think given the amount of people who attended this evening and the comment we heard, this highlights the need for broader conversation and continuing to work on this issue. And I look forward to participating in the conversations that are taking place at the community level. As I stated earlier, there's a new coalition called Youth at the Center Coalition. I look forward to participating in that work. I look forward to working with Councilor Rivera and Councilor Villarreal and the Community Health and Safety Task Force. And I look forward to addressing some of these issues with teens on the South Side. We have opened our Boys and Girls Clubs in the evenings 2 weeks ago, and every night we have between 40 and 50 teens. I mean, that just shows the need that we have here on the South Side for this teen center and these other community resources that we are trying to work together on. And so again, thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to law enforcement for what you do. And thank you, Mayor, for allowing us the opportunity to have this discussion this evening.
Thank you again to everyone on the panel, the police department, Sheriff Mendoza, Fire Chief as well. Christine Mihalsik, thank you very much to you for doing all that you do for us. I know you don't hear it enough. I want to say thank you to Councilor Abeyta, who's a great person to work with on the council, and we work well together to represent District 3. So I don't think all the districts have that, but we work pretty well together. So I also wanted to thank the mayor for continuing with his promise to really give some attention and some love to District 3. He promised that in his campaign and he's lived up to it. So thank you, Mayor, for doing that. I especially want to thank the public, those that commented and those that didn't. I did take notes on everything, and I will take the next couple of days to read it over and see what's there and continue to see what we can do to make things better for our teens, for our youth. So that's the most important thing. I do want to leave you with just a couple things. There's an app called nextdoor.com that really links neighbors together. A lot of people put things on there like they're having a garage sale, but occasionally there's some really good important information, like there's a group of people walking around the neighborhood. We don't know who they are. Watch out. puts people on alert and gives them the opportunity to, along with Neighborhood Watch, to keep an eye on your neighbors and your neighborhood. The other thing is that Councilor Beta and I meet monthly with a group called Southwest Santa Fe Area Meeting Group. It's just residents of Tierra Contenta that get together. We talk about issues in the neighborhood. We need more people to be involved. And if you're interested in that, please email me at cm as in Michael Rivera at santafenm.gov, and we'll make sure you get in contact with people that are associated with that group and how you can be involved in that. So again, thank you, all of you. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. So appreciate it.
Mayor.
Thank you to both of you. You are tremendous partners, and I'm very grateful to your leadership and your guidance. And District 3 is very fortunate to have leaders like you. And thank you to our law enforcement representatives and Fire Chief Babcock, Christine, and to all the people who came out tonight. There is a youth town hall tomorrow at 4. And here again, I think involvement, engagement, more conversation is really important. I just leave you with 2 thoughts. The first is fear is really our enemy. Fear of each other, fear of stereotypes, fear of assumptions that people make about each other without even engaging in a human-to-human conversation. That really creates barriers and prevents us from engaging with each other as people, as friends, as members of the same community. I think it is to the credit of all of our law enforcement personnel and to all of our residents who come out tonight and speak their piece, that we get to look, we're not in the same room, but we're in the same space, and we get to look at each other in the eye and hear each other's voices and show respect for each other. And ultimately, I hope, show love for each other, because that's the cure to all of the ills that we're all so worried about, is compassion and love. It's not law enforcement. It's not even elected officials. It's people reaching out to each other and finding in their hearts a way to care for each other. So thank you to everybody for showing respect and compassion and love. And let's continue to do that going forward. That's the remedy we're all looking for. The second thing I would say is that it is absolutely clear to me, and I've spent the last 4 to 5 months studying every police report, every police reform report, talking with national police experts, retired police chiefs. It's absolutely clear to me, no single one of us has the answer to these issues that are really rising to the surface, issues of poverty and inequity, issues of historic racism, issues of, as I said, fear of each other and assumptions about each other, stereotyping of each other. There's no one department or elected official or report that's got all the answers. But one answer that comes up in every single report is trust. If we find a way to trust each other, even when we disagree, to trust that we're trying to arrive at solutions that work for all of us, that trust will carry us through. And the work that we're talking about tonight didn't start with this particular project, but it is really symbolized by this project, which tries to bring together solutions from the heart, as well as solutions from responsibility and holding people accountable. It's both. It's not one or the other. So we all need to be offering each other our best ideas and our best thoughts, and also our best ways of supporting each other going forward. This is a city that has an enormous amount of love and compassion in our community for each other. And the district that you're in is very much the center of our future. It's where our families and kids live. We take all of their lives seriously, and we cherish them. So thank you, everybody, for your participation. We'll do this again. There's a youth meeting tomorrow, and I know Councilors Rivera and Abeyta are going to continue to work with all parts of the community, as will I, to make progress every single day that we work at this. We are really committed. So thank you all. I'm very grateful to everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.